When you think of mech games, chances are you picture something heavy, metallic, and maybe even a little clunky. M.A.S.S. Builder flips that expectation on its head. Instead of making you feel like you're piloting a tank on legs, it throws you into a fast-moving world where agility and creativity matter just as much as raw firepower. At its core, this game is about building something that feels like yours, a mechanical suit that doesn't just fight for humanity's survival, but also reflects your vision as a pilot and a commander. The backdrop is bleak but compelling. Humanity should have been thriving after a century of prosperity, but everything changed with the arrival of the Quarks. These alien beasts erupted out of the void, tearing through civilizations, reducing cities into craters, and forcing humanity underground. Entire landscapes transformed into battlefields, and survival meant adapting at lightning speed. That's when the M.A.S.S. units, mechanical assault skeleton suits, were born. They weren't just weapons, they were humanity's last chance to fight back. And in M.A.S.S. Builder, you're not just another soldier. You're the head of a private military company, responsible not only for fighting, but also for shaping your identity in this war-torn world. What makes the game click is the way it handles customization. Normally, in RPGs, you're stuck with the eternal trade-off. Do you equip the armor that looks amazing, or do you wear the ugly piece with better stats? Here, that dilemma doesn't exist. M.A.S.S. Builder makes a clean separation. Stats are tied to equipment choices, but visuals are purely cosmetic. That means you can design the mech you've always imagined without worrying about being punished for choosing style over efficiency. Want a sleek, anime-inspired frame with glowing blades? Go for it. Prefer something bulky, industrial, and intimidating? That's on the table too. Every suit you build is yours, and that freedom makes every sortie feel like you're stepping into the battlefield with your personal vision, not just another template. The customization system goes even deeper when it comes to weapons. You're not limited to just picking a sword or a rifle, you're deciding how it looks, how it behaves, and how it fits your combat flow. Hundreds of parts are available to mix and match, letting you create firearms that feel uniquely yours. Do you want a cannon that looks like it came out of a Gundam? Or a hybrid blade rifle that cuts and shoots in the same rhythm? It's not just gear, it's creative expression. And that's the magic of M.A.S.S. Builder. The game blurs the line between role-playing and crafting, so the tools you bring to battle carry your personal stamp. But all the customization in the world wouldn't mean much if the combat didn't deliver, and here, the pace is relentless. Forget lumbering around in heavy armor. With boosters strapped to your frame, you dash, jump, and glide across the battlefield like a living weapon. Quarks don't come politely one at a time. They swarm in massive numbers, surrounding you with their beast-like aggression. Some are small, quick, and deadly in groups, while others tower over you like monsters out of a nightmare. They don't just wait for you to find them, they hunt you. Every fight becomes a test of reflexes, positioning, and how well your build actually functions under pressure. And then there's the rhythm of battle itself. The movement feels fast and sharp, but it's not chaos for chaos's sake. You have to think about how your suit is built. Did you design it for mobility, for heavy damage, for balance? Every decision in the garage echoes on the battlefield, forcing you to adapt to the flow of combat. And when it all clicks, when your mech slices through hordes of Quarks, unleashes a custom-built weapon, and blasts across the sky with boosters, it feels less like playing a game and more like directing an action sequence that you created. Beyond the battles, the world of M.A.S.S. Builder is rich with lore. It doesn't just throw you into combat arenas without context. The game takes time to explore how humanity is holding on, how cities have fallen, how people have rebuilt shelters underground, and how technology has been reinvented as tools of war. It's not just about killing monsters, it's about survival in a setting where hope is scarce. That makes the fight against the Quarks feel weighty, not just another round of alien shooting. What really sets the experience apart is the balance it strikes. On one hand, it's a playground for creativity. You can spend hours tinkering with your mech, adjusting parts, testing paint jobs, and experimenting with builds. On the other, it's a fast, high-energy action RPG that throws you straight into the chaos of alien combat. Most games in this genre lean too far one way or the other. Either they're customization simulators with shallow combat, or they're action-heavy, but leave no room for personal expression. M.A.S.S. Builder manages to do both, and it does so in a way that feels seamless. In the end, M.A.S.S. Builder isn't just about piloting a machine, it's about identity, creativity, and survival in a collapsing world. Every part you bolt onto your mech tells a story about how you want to fight and how you want to be seen in the battlefield. And when the Quarks come for you, and they always come, you'll know that the suit you built isn't just another weapon. It's your creation, your lifeline, and your answer to the void.
Weapon required for loading. Reload required. Weapon required for loading. Weapon required for loading. Mission clear. Destination confirmed. Launch process initiated. Stars eliminated. Proceed to next objective. Large group of enemies encountered. Mission clear. Destination confirmed. Launch process initiated. Unit disconnected. Reconnecting. Pilot controls disabled. Rebooting. Pilot controls disabled. Rebooting. Controls offline. Reconnecting. Controls offline. Reconnecting. Mission objective updated. Controls offline. Reconnecting. control is offline. Reconnecting. Mission clear.